Okay, this lesson is going to be about theorems about perpendicular lines. If we would do this activity here, where we fold a piece of paper to form a line and then we fold it again, we unfold and label the angles, we could see that the fold lines do appear to be perpendicular or form right angles. If we used a protractor, we would find out that 4 right angles were formed when we folded the paper. So that above activity will suggest that 1, all right angles are congruent because they all measure 90 degrees, and that when we have 2 lines that are perpendicular, they will intersect to form 4 right angles. So I just want to highlight those for you. So again, all right angles are congruent, and if 2 lines are perpendicular, they intersect to form 4 right angles. So we're going to look at the diagram. We're told that line R is perpendicular to S, and R is perpendicular to T. We're going to determine whether there's enough info to given to conclude that the statement's true. So let's look at the first one. We have 3 congruent to 5. So there's 3 and there's 5. Well, if we take notice, they are right angles. Oops. So both angles are right angles. And all right angles are congruent. So this statement would be true. Four congruent to 5. 4 congruent to 5. Well, let's look at where 4 is. Four is here. And there's 5. Are they congruent? Well, I don't know. Do I know if 4 is a right angle? Well, since I know that R is perpendicular to T, four right angles formed. So angle 4 is a right angle. So this is true. How about 2 congruent to 3? Well, I don't know anything about lines R and U. So, since I don't know if angle 2 is a right angle, there's not enough info. Okay, you should pause the video and see if you can figure out there's enough information given to conclude that the statement is true, and then use what you know about perpendicular lines forming 4 right angles and that all right angles are congruent to give your reasoning. Pause the video. As you're watching, I'm not going to explain as much. I'm just going to write, so you just want to watch and see if you agree, and if you have any questions, make sure you ask in class. Might be helpful if you put the little right angle indicator at all four angles so that you don't forget about perpendicular lines creating four right angles. Okay, hopefully you were able to agree with us. Angles 8 and 9, you didn't have enough info. You don't know if H is perpendicular to either E or F. There's no indication. So that would be not enough info for those two. Everything else, you have four right angles formed with G being perpendicular to E and G being perpendicular to F. Okay, the next theorem we're going to learn about perpendicular is that if we have two lines that intersect and they form two adjacent angles, congruent angles, so like angles 1 and 2, then the lines are perpendicular. Okay, so there's one. So if they form two adjacent congruent angles, two intersecting lines, the only two angles that can be adjacent and congruent with two intersecting lines are right angles, so they have to be right angles, and then our lines are perpendicular. And then if I have two sides of adjacent acute angles are perpendicular, such as in the diagram here, there's our two angles, and their two outsides, right, are perpendicular, then those two angles are complementary. Okay, so we're going to do some examples. In the helicopter, right, angles AXB is congruent, right, there's a little indicator, to BAC. So we have two lines intersect to form adjacent congruent angles. Those lines are perpendicular. So the angles are right angles. When you use algebra with our perpendicular lines, you see that I have two sides of adjacent angles that form a right angle or perpendicular. So that means my two angles are complementary. So that means when I add them together, they equal 90. Subtract 30. Divide by 6. So y equals 10. Okay, so you have a few to try on the next page. So go and try them first before you look at the answers. Okay, in the first ones you have perpendicular lines because you have two lines intersecting with adjacent angles congruent. So they have to be, they form perpendicular lines, so the angles are right angles. In the second one, you have adjacent acute angles that are perpendicular, so the angles are complementary. And the last one is the same reason as the second one. Once again, the assignment is not this, so you want to make sure you check the assignment on Schoology. Concept check, what do you know about two lines that intersect to form two adjacent congruent angles? The lines are perpendicular. Make sure you put your concept check on your concept check assignment and to submit these notes. End of lesson 3-2.